Hello guys, so now we shall be discussing regarding the posterior view of the external features of the medulla oblongata, posterior or the dorsal surface. Okay, so a topic of discussion would be the dorsal or the posterior view of your medulla oblongata. Posterior view or the dorsal view of your medulla oblongata. Okay, right. So regarding the posterior or the dorsal view of medulla oblongata, so how does a picture look? So first important thing, again we shall start from the basics and all. So first of all, let us start from the midbrain, because in the previous lecture also we started discussing from the midbrain. So here let us say this particular structure is your midbrain. On the posterior side, on the back side of your medulla oblongata, you can see four structures. Okay, I will show you the real medulla oblongata also, and we shall compare both of them. Okay, so there are four important structures, two structures on the top, we have got two important structures on the bottom. So these two structures which are located on the top are called as superior colliculus, and the next two structures which are located on the bottom are called as inferior colliculus. Okay, so this one over here is called as your superior colliculus, and these two structures are called as your inferior colliculus. And what is the function of superior colliculus? Superior colliculus is responsible for what? Vision. And what is the function of inferior colliculus? Inferior colliculus is responsible for auditory function, or you can also call it as a hearing. Now separating the superior colliculus and the inferior colliculus, you have got a sulcus like this. This is called as cruciform sulcus. Okay, what is this called as? This is called as cruciform because it is crossed. So that is why it is called as cruciform sulcus. Next, beneath this you have got this particular structure which you can see over here. This is called as your, obviously all of you know what is this. This is called as your pons. So this structure over here is called as your pons, right? Now beneath the pons you have got medulla oblongata, but this time the medulla oblongata is on the posterior side. Posterior side medulla oblongata is different. How it is different? So all of you look here now. Right. So this is a structure of the medulla oblongata on to the posterior side. Okay, so on the posterior side the medulla oblongata looks actually different. So how it is different is that, see, first important thing, let us mark the structures which we have studied from the previous class, that is the anterior view. Okay, based upon that we shall mark the structures on the back. So first important thing is that you see these two structures which are located on either sides, right? So these structures and this structure which is located on either side, these two are called as olives. So this thing everyone is clear. So all of you know that this structure over here is called as olives, on one on the right, one on the left, and this one over here is called as your pons, right? Now next important thing is that in the center over here, right? So this is exactly a picture in this way, guys. I want all of you to just imagine the thing which I'm showing it to you here. So all of you look here, this is your anterior surface and this is your posterior or the ventral surface, right? Now in this posterior ventral surface, here you have got pons, right? After this pons, you see this V-shaped opening here, this V-shaped opening. So you can also appreciate that same V-shaped opening over here also, right? So what is this V-shaped opening actually? This V-shaped opening is nothing but a canal. I cannot show the canal here because this is a 2D picture. So in this you can see that this V-shaped opening is actually a canal. So this V shape is continuing down as a canal. What canal? Central canal. So here this part, you see this part is called as a canal. Actually in the center of the canal, like this, where exactly my pencil is present, you see a line. This pencil itself is a line. So I am drawing the same line over here. Just have a look. You see I am drawing a central line over here in the canal, right? So this central line over here is called as a median sulcus. Okay, so this central line over here is called as median sulcus. This is called as a median sulcus. Now on either sides of the median sulcus, let me draw the median sulcus like this. On either sides of the median sulcus, this is how the picture is present. You see this? On either sides of the median sulcus, you see I try to draw it, but I don't know that it is really like that. I try to draw a eminence like this, right? Let us say a swelling, a longitudinal ridge like thing, a longitudinal swelling like thing, which I've tried to draw over here. So there are two longitudinal swellings on either side, right? So these two longitudinal swellings on either side over here, what are these two called as? These two are called as eminence. What eminence? These are called as medial eminence. These two are called as medial eminence. Okay, so one is called as the olives, next two are called as a medial eminence over here, right? Now next important thing is that outside the central canal, right, outside the central canal also, in the center you have this particular line, right? Now what is this line called as? Just compare this line with the previous one. So this is a posterior view. Now I am telling about the anterior view. So in the anterior view, between the two pyramids, you have got a central line over here. This central line is called as anterior median fissure, right? Anterior median fissure. Now this central line is called as posterior median sulcus. You call it as posterior median sulcus. Posterior median sulcus. Next, here you have also seen two more important things. On the lateral side, this one you call it as anterolateral sulcus. On the lateral sides like this. So here also, do we have any lateral structures? See, this is one lateral structure located over here. This is one lateral structure that is located over here. So these two lateral structures are called as anterolateral sulcus or postrolateral sulcus. Previously we called it as anterolateral sulcus, but this is from the posterior view. So you have to call it as posterolateral sulcus. This you call it as posterolateral sulcus. So this structure over here is called as posterolateral sulcus. Okay, one is called as your anterolateral sulcus. This is called as your posterolateral sulcus. Second important thing, these are olives I have already told you. Now, one very important structure we have got over here. You see this particular shading which I am doing right now, right? So this particular shading that is located on either side of your central canal, right? So this is a particular shading that is located on either side of your central canal. So this particular shading over here which I have done is what is called as inferior cerebellar peduncle. I will draw that from another view. This is called as inferior cerebellar peduncle. So what is the other name for inferior cerebellar peduncle? This is also called as a restiform body. This is also called as what? A restiform body. For example, let us say this thing, that this part over here is your midbrain, right? And next this part over here is your pons. And after that, this is your medulla oblongata continuing down as spinal cord. Okay, all of you know that this part over here is called as your cerebellum. So this is your cerebellum. Okay, now we have got three important peduncles. From the midbrain to cerebellum, we have got this peduncle here. This is called as superior cerebellar peduncle. Okay, next we have got an other peduncle in this way like this. This is called as middle cerebellar peduncle. And down here we have got another peduncle like this. This is called as inferior cerebellar peduncle, right? So this peduncle, if you are looking from the front, this is called as inferior cerebellar peduncle. So this inferior cerebellar peduncle is given another name, that is what is called as your restiform body. This is what is called as your restiform body. So this was the structure which you can see over here. This is called as your restiform body. Okay, right. So this is your restiform body over here. Now what we shall do is that, so these are the structures. Now what we shall do is that we shall cut down the medulla oblongata like this and look from the top. Okay, so when we cut down the medulla oblongata, this is how it looks. Right. So this is how the medulla oblongata looks when we cut it down. Right. So this part, this sulcus which you can see here, this is called as posterior median sulcus. You see in the center we have drawn a sulcus like this. Right. So this sulcus which is located on the posterior side is called as posterior median sulcus. And by the way, first of all, let me tell you one very important thing. Whether it might be spinal cord or whether it might be medulla oblongata, what is the important thing is that when you are dividing this spinal cord or medulla oblongata into two halves, so this part will become the anterior part. What is the other name for the anterior part? Ventral part. This part will become the posterior part or the dorsal part. Okay, so if this is a dorsal part, then this sulcus over here is called as which sulcus? This is called as a posterior median sulcus. Posterior median sulcus. Then this one over here is called as what? This is called as anterior median sulcus. Is it looking like a sulcus or is it looking like a fissure? It is looking like a fissure. So anterior median fissure. Anterior median fissure. So that is the reason why in the previous lectures we discussed that this is posterior median sulcus. Posterior median sulcus, and here we have discussed anterior median fissure because it is looking like a fissure. So this is your anterior median fissure. Next, after that, in the anterior side, on the lateral sides also we have got two important structures. What are they? One is called as anterolateral sulcus. On the back we have got what? We have got posterolateral sulcus. So where is anterolateral and where is posterolateral? See, this structure over here is called as anterolateral sulcus. Anterolateral sulcus, and this structure over here is called as posterolateral sulcus. Anterolateral sulcus and posterolateral sulcus. Okay, so these are the four important structures rather I can tell, which you can see on the cut section. Okay, now what we shall do is that you already know that what is this line which I have drawn like this. See, you see this black color line which I have drawn. See, exactly this one I am talking about. You see this line which I have drawn over here. What is this line? This line, behind this line from here all the way till here, this is your medulla oblongata, and from here till the next continuation, that is your spinal cord. So what we will do is that we shall make a cut section of spinal cord and we shall see what are the structures that are in continuation with the medulla oblongata, right? I know you did not understand whatever I have told you. What I am telling you right now is that we will draw this same picture again. And now what we'll draw is that we will draw the spinal cord like this. Okay, and we shall see from medulla oblongata to spinal cord, are there any changes or are there any structures that are continuing downwards? Okay, for example, this is posterior median sulcus in the medulla oblongata. Do we really have posterior median sulcus continuing down into the spinal cord or no? We shall discuss now. Okay, in the same way the other structures also. So just look at the picture, right? And yeah, before the picture, just look at these structures. This is a real image, and yeah, what are these two? This is called as your right crus cerebris, this is called as your left crus cerebris, right? So this is called as your right crus cerebri and this is called as your left crus, and totally you call this part as your midbrain. And what is this? This is called as your pons. And what is this structure called as? Medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata has got two pyramids, I told you. You see this structure over here, this is called as your right pyramid, and this structure over here is called as your left pyramid. Right pyramid and left pyramid. On either sides of the pyramids, these structures which you can see, these are called as olives. These structures are called as olives. In the center you see a line, in the pyramid you see this line like this, which I am drawing. Again, let me rub it out. You see a line, right? So this line whatever you can see is called as anterior median fissure or anterior median sulcus. It is anterior median fissure, anterior median fissure. And what is this particular blue color line which I have drawn here? So this particular line over here is called as anterolateral sulcus, anterolateral sulcus. So what I was telling you, that this this medulla oblongata is divided into two parts. This upper part is called as your open part, and the lower part is called as your closed part. So this is a view from the anterior side. So anterior side is also called as your ventral side, right? So this is a view from the anterior or the ventral side. For example, if I am turning it back, this is how it looks on the back. On the back, you remember that I have told you there is something like a V-shaped structure, right? So this was the V-shaped structure which I have told you on the back. You see this V-shaped structure. So isn't it looking like the same V-shaped structure, right? So can I tell that this V-shaped structure is having this cavity? This cavity is called as what? Central canal. So this cavity over here is called as central canal. Central canal. And you can also see in the center of the central canal, you see a line like this. You see a small line in the center of the central canal. So let us look at back these pictures. In the center of the central canal, what is this line? This is called as median sulcus, right? So this line over here is called as your median sulcus. Median sulcus. Okay. Now after that, if you very closely observe, very closely observe, you can see two important structures over here: posterolateral sulcus and posterior median sulcus, right? So this sulcus which you can see like this is called as posterior median sulcus, posterior median sulcus. And you see these lines over here on both the sides like this, right? Again I'm rubbing it out, just look at it. You see these lines? These lines over here which you can see is called as posterolateral sulcus. Posterolateral sulcus. So one thing you have is the posterior median sulcus, another one you have is a posterolateral sulcus. And obviously this continuation down is your spinal cord. Okay, so these are the structures which you need to know here, right? So let me continue with that picture over here. So in that picture we should not draw, this is your midbrain, right and left crus cerebri, and here you have got your pons. So this particular part is your pons. Now just beneath the pons over here you have got this particular thing. These are called as your pyramids, right? So these are called as your pyramids of your medulla oblongata. Now after these pyramids of medulla oblongata, on either sides like this you have got two structures called as olives, right? So down here, this is a way, these are the structures like this. And just beneath this line, this entire part is called as your spinal cord. This entire part is called as your spinal cord. Now within this spinal cord, as I was telling you, let us see what are the structures. Okay, so let us say first important thing is, let me draw the central part of the spinal cord. Right. So if you can see over here, this center part which I am highlighting with the pink, right? This center part is called as the central gray matter of your spinal cord. Okay. Surrounding the gray matter of the spinal cord, what do you have? Obviously, the other matter will be is called as a white matter. So let us look at the white matter now. This is a gray matter. This structure which I am drawing right now is your white matter like this. So this is your white matter. So what we'll do is that we shall little bit extend this thing so that it would be easy. Let me draw this gray and white matter. So this is a gray matter, and now this with the green color whatever I'm drawing is your white matter. right. So here, if you very closely observe over here, this part over here is having a small depression like this. Okay, in the same way this part over here is also having a small depression. So these are not new pictures, guys. These pictures you already knew this. So I'm pretty sure that you are aware of these pictures already. So let us see what are the structures over here, right? So first of all, let me draw the borders over here. So this part is your spinal cord like this. Let us draw it. Obviously there is no swelling and all. This is absolutely straight. Okay, so this part is your spinal cord. This part is your spinal cord. Now in the spinal cord, the first important thing I want to tell you is that I just wanted to divide this spinal cord into two halves. You see, I am dividing the spinal cord into two halves. So the upper part is called as what? Again the same thing. The upper part is called as a dorsal, or it is called as a posterior. The lower part is called as a anterior, or you call it as a ventral. Okay. Now exactly here, if you very carefully look, this part whatever you can see here, this is called as posterior median fissure. This part is called as posterior median fissure. But what did we call here in the posterior side? Did we call it as posterior median fissure? No, we called it as posterior median sulcus. But when it came to the spinal cord, can I call it like this, that posterior median sulcus within the medulla oblongata is continuing down as posterior median fissure in the spinal cord. Yeah, so it is continuing down as posterior median fissure. Next, this particular thing is called as anterior median fissure. Anterior median fissure. So even in the medulla oblongata also, the anterior part, this depression is called as anterior median fissure only. So anterior median fissure in the medulla oblongata is continuing down as anterior median fissure in the spinal cord. Next, after that, what are these structures called? These structures are located on the posterior side, right? And they are located laterally. So can I call them as posterior lateral sulcus? Posterolateral sulcus. Posterolateral sulcus. So even the posterolateral sulcus of the medulla oblongata is in continuous with the posterolateral sulcus of your spinal cord. And this one will be called as what? This structure is called as anterolateral sulcus. Anterolateral sulcus. Again the same, right? Again the same. It is continuous with the medulla oblongata. Now if you enter into the spinal cord, what did I tell you? The center part of the spinal cord is having the grey matter. Surrounding the grey matter, you have got which matter? You have got white matter. Okay, so this center is called as a grey matter. Surrounding this, the remaining part is called as your white matter. Second important thing is that now let us see what are these horns over here. You see two important horns. You see this particular horn over here. This horn is located on the dorsal side. So this horn is called as a dorsal horn. Dorsal or the posterior horn of your spinal cord. Those two, one on the right, one on the left. And these two structures over here is called as a ventral horn or the anterior horn of your spinal cord. Ventral or the anterior horn of your spinal cord. Okay. So dorsal horn is finished, ventral horn is finished. Now after these two horns are there, you see this part over here, let me highlight it. Right. You see this part. So what is this particular part called as? This particular part is called as funiculus. How many funiculus we have got? We have got two funiculus. So one funiculus is present on the right and the other funiculus is present on the left. So we call this as what? Lateral funiculus. Now let me draw two more funiculus. You see this another funiculus like this. This is one funiculus and here also we have got another funiculus. Okay, now look at the third funiculus. See, this particular part is one funiculus and this particular part is also another funiculus. Okay, now let us name all these funiculus over here. See, this particular funiculus which you can see over here, this particular one is called as the posterior funiculus. This particular one is called as a posterior funiculus. And this particular one is called as the anterior funiculus. anterior funiculus. Okay, so how many funiculus you have got? You have got one is called as the posterior funiculus, another one is called as the anterior funiculus. And what is this funiculus here called as? This funiculus is called as a lateral funiculus. Lateral funiculus. Okay, so these are the structures which you can see within your spinal cord. Okay, so what are the important structures? Once again, let us revise. So we discussed about the posterior median fissure, right? Posterior median fissure. We have discussed about anterior median fissure. We have discussed about posterior lateral sulcus, right? Posterior lateral sulcus. We have discussed about the anterior lateral sulcus. Next important thing here is that we discussed about the anterior funiculus. We have discussed about the posterior funiculus. After that, we discussed about the lateral funiculus on both the sides. Okay, so these are the structures which you need to know regarding the spinal cord. So now you can relate very easily, compare the spinal cord structures along with the medulla oblongata, and you can see what are the structures that are in continuation with your spinal cord as well as your medulla oblongata. So in the previous lecture, we have discussed the structures that are located on the ventral surface as well as the structures that are located on the dorsal surface of your medulla oblongata, right? So once again, so as I was telling you that here, this surface which you can see here, this is the ventral surface of the anterior surface, and the back part is called as a dorsal surface or the posterior surface. What did I tell you? I told you in the dorsal surface of the posterior surface exactly. If I am dividing this posterior surface into two parts, this is called as the upper part, this is called as the lower part. Upper part is called as the open part. You see it is completely open here, and the lower part is a closed part. So the upper part is the open part and the lower part is the closed part. Okay, upper part is the open part and the lower part is the closed part, right? So we have discussed some structures that are present on the ventral surface, right? We have discussed structures that are present on the dorsal surface. Now we shall draw this picture again and we shall add up some other pictures and see what are the other extra structures that are located. Actually, I can, as I have already told you in the previous lectures, I can draw it here itself and show it to you in a single picture. But as there are already a number of structures that are present here, it will be a kind of messy. As I keep on putting the lines over the parts for labeling and all, it would be a kind of disturbance over here. So that is why let us clearly draw this again and again and then discuss the parts very clearly individually. Okay, so I'll draw this entire part and you will tell me the structures, and then adding upon that we will discuss the remaining structures. Okay, right. So let us say for example, these are the structures over here, right? So let us start our picture all the way. Right now we are discussing about the external features. External features on the front side we are done. We are discussing about the external features on the back. I mean the posterior view or the dorsal view, right? Where that the V-shaped opening was there, right? The upper open part and the lower closed part. So if we are discussing that, then first we have to start our discussion from our midbrain, right? So this is the midbrain from the back. On the back you see two important structures on the top. These two important structures on the top are called as superior colliculus. Then two important structures on the bottom, these are called as inferior colliculus. So between the superior and inferior colliculus, here you have got this particular structure over here. This is called as your pons. Okay, so this particular structure over here is called as your pons. Now beneath the pons is what you have your medulla oblongata, right? So let me draw as, so this is the posterior side. Posterior side here, let me draw this V-shaped opening over here, right? And all of you know that this is a posterolateral sulcus. This is a posterolateral sulcus, and these are your olives like this. On both the sides you have got olives in this way, and this is where your spinal cord, your medulla oblongata will terminate, and that would continue down as your spinal cord all the way like this. Okay, now here let me draw another line. This is called as, this is a posterior median sulcus. Now here we have discussed the structures that are present over here, right? So you remember that we discussed there is one important line that is present in the center like this, in the central canal, and this important line is called as median sulcus, right? Now on either sides of the median sulcus, I will not label the names, I will just draw it, but the new names I will label them. So on either sides, right, on either sides we have discussed this structure over here, right? So what is this structure which you can see over here on either sides? So this structure which I'm drawing on either sides is a longitudinal ridge which is swollen, right? So this longitudinal swollen ridge is what is called as your medial eminence. So this particular longitudinal ridge over here is called as your medial eminence over here, right? So I'm not labeling it because I've labeled it in the previous lectures. So next important thing is that as I've already told you that you can divide, right? You can divide this spinal medulla oblongata into two parts. So this upper part above this pink line over here is called as an open part, upper open part. Let me write it down. This is the upper part and this is called as a lower part. So the upper part is an open part over here, upper part is open and the lower part is closed, or lower part is closed, right? So this thing all of you know. Second important thing not to forget, that on either sides over here you have got these two structures over here. These two structures are called as your olives. What are these two structures called? These two structures are called as your olives. Okay. Now after these olives and all, here we have discussed two additional things. What are those two additional things over here which we have discussed? See here, we actually had shaded this thing over here. You see this blue color thing which I'm shading right now. So this thing over here and the same thing on the opposite side. So this structure which I'm shading right now is nothing but called as your inferior cerebellar peduncle, which you also called as the restiform body. We have discussed this previously. Now this center one is called as your, this center line is called as your posterior median sulcus, right? So in the previous lectures, let us just get back to the thing which we have discussed already. See, this center one is called over here as posterior median sulcus. Okay, so it means this center part over here is called as your, this one is called as your posterior. Let me write it like this. See, this part over here is called as your posterior median sulcus. This center part is called as your posterior median sulcus, and this part is called as a posterolateral sulcus. Posterolateral sulcus. Okay. Now, if you go on to the top, on either sides of the posterior median sulcus, you see, on either sides of the posterior median sulcus, you see these two red color structures which you can see here. These two red color structures which you can see here are called as gracilis tubercle. Okay, what are these two called? These two are called as gracile tubercle. This is a very important thing you need to know. These two structures are called as gracile tubercle. Next, where are the gracile tubercle located? They are located medially. Now lateral to this gracile tubercle, here you have got a very important tubercle, and here also you have got a very important tubercle. Where is gracile tubercle present? Gracile tubercle is present towards the posterior median sulcus, and this green color tubercle which I am writing right now is present towards the posterior lateral sulcus. Okay, so this green color tubercle which you can see over here, this is called as cuneate tubercle. Cuneate tubercle. Okay, now just beneath these tubercles, there are swellings. Obviously there are swellings in the sense in the form of a longitudinal ridge like this. You see, there are swellings like this. Okay, so let me make up this picture in a different way. You see these swellings like this, right? So these swellings aren't these swellings located on either side? Yes or no? So these are the swellings that are located on either side. So this longitudinal ridge like swelling, whatever you can see here, this is called fasciculus, and this fasciculus is by the name gracilis fasciculus, fasciculus gracilis. Okay. In the same way, you even have got the same swellings like this. You even have got the same swellings on the opposite side also like this. You see, there is a swelling even just near this green color tubercle. What is this green color tubercle called? This green color tubercle is nothing but called as cuneate tubercle. So if there is a swelling just beneath this green color tubercle, so you have to call this as which kind of tubercle? This is called as gracilis tubercle, or this is called as cuneatus. This is called as fasciculus cuneatus. So this swelling that is located below is called as fasciculus cuneatus. Fasciculus cuneatus. Okay, and this red color swelling over here is called as fasciculus gracilis. Fasciculus gracilis. So we have got something called as fasciculus cuneatus, we have got something called as fasciculus gracilis. So these are the two important structures, and we have got two tubercles also. One tubercle is called as a gracile tubercle, and the other tubercle over here is called as a cuneate tubercle. So I hope you are familiar with these structures. Now if these structures, if I draw in that previous older picture, then don't you think it would be a kind of messy over here, right? So that is the reason we have drawn them separately. Second important thing is that down here, exactly near this elongated ridge, or you can also call as posterolateral sulcus, exactly near the posterolateral sulcus on the down, see exactly here, the lower part of the posterolateral sulcus on the right, the lower part of the posterolateral sulcus on the left. Now what are these two tubercle like structures over here? These two tubercle like structures is called as tuberculum cinereum. Okay, so these two structures are called as tuberculum cinereum. Tuberculum cinereum. Okay, so these two structures over here that are located on the posterolateral sulcus in the lower part are called as tuberculum cinereum. So these are some of the additional structures, right? Now apart from this, are there any other structures? Yes, there are some very important structures. So what are these important structures? See, if you pay attention clearly, just above this, here I am drawing one red color line, right? So this red color line is nothing but called as a ridge of neural tissue. Okay, so you see this red color line which I am drawing right now. So this red color line is also called as a ridge of neural tissue that is coming from both the sides like this. You see, this red color line is nothing but called as a ridge of neural tissue that is coming from both the sides. Now, okay, let me write this down. So this is called as a ridge of neural tissue. So this ridge of neural tissue, okay, this ridge of neural tissue is what is called as tinea. What is this name called as? This name is called as tinea. Now if you look at this ridge, there is a septum like thing that is connecting the one ridge from another ridge. Yes or no? From one ridge to another ridge there is a septum like thing. So this septum like thing which is connecting one ridge to another ridge is called as funiculus sapierens. Okay, so what is this called as? This is called as funiculus sapierens. Now if I ask you, this funiculus sapierens is separating what? You see, this entire canal is called as a central canal. So it is dividing the central canal into upper part and lower part. Yes or no? Broad upper part and a triangular lower part. So this division is done by what? This division is done by funiculus sapierens. This division is done by funiculus sapierens. So funiculus sapierens will separate the upper part from the lower part. Okay. Next important thing is that just beneath this neural ridge. So what I have to do is I have just correct this picture over here a little bit, right? So this is your neural ridge all the way like this. This is your neural ridge called as your tinea. Just beneath the tinea down. See here, just beneath the tinea down, I'm putting some small blue color dots like this, you see. This blue color dots which are located within this conical projection, right? This entire area is called as obex. Okay, so this entire area which I have written in the form of a dotted line, this area name is called as obex. Obex. So this triangular conical projection is called as tinea, and this beneath the tinea, this area is called as obex. Now above this, can you see this area, guys? If I rub it out, you can see it very clearly. See, I'm rubbing this triangular area, right? Now after rubbing this triangular area, let me shade it down. You see, I'm giving a light pink shade over here, right? So this area which is located here, this is called as what? This is called as area postrema. Very, very important area, and this area over here is called as your area postrema. Area postrema. So if someone is asking you where is area postrema present, what will you tell? Area postrema is present within the central canal. Central canal of what? Central canal on the anterior aspect or the posterior aspect? The posterior aspect, exactly where you can see the upper part of the medulla oblongata. And can I also tell area postrema is located just below, above the obex, right? So area postrema is a triangular area that is located above the obex, and that is formed by what? That is formed by your funiculus apparens, and also it is formed by tinea. Clear all of you? That is formed by your tinea. Now what is this area postrema? Area postrema is a very, very important thing. Why it is very important thing? Because your cardiac center, your respiratory center, your vasomotor center, all these three areas are located in this area postrema. Okay, so what are the areas that are located? Your cardiac center is located here, your respiratory center is located, and your vasomotor center is also located. Okay, so there are three centers that are located over here. So what are these three areas? One is your cardiac area, next your vasomotor area, and the third one is your respiratory area. Now why is this clinically important? Why is this clinically important is that, for example, let us say there is something called as judicial hanging, right? Whenever you hang a patient, okay, let us say this is your medulla oblongata, okay. So you know little part of medulla oblongata, where is it? Little part of medulla oblongata is present beneath your spinal cord also. So exactly, let us say, see this triangular portion, whatever you can see here, okay, see this triangular portion, yeah. You see this triangular portion? This triangular portion is the place where your area postrema is present. So exactly within this area postrema, you have got these three centers. Now, whenever a hangman is putting a knot around the neck, which vertebra is fractured? That is usually C2. Okay, so that is why it is called as hangman's fracture. So whenever the C2 vertebra fractures, let us say this is a C2 vertebra. Whenever the C2 vertebra will fracture, this fracture will push this area, it will compress on this area. It will compress this area postrema. So when it will compress that area postrema, immediately your cardiac center, respiratory center and a vasomotor central are damaged. Okay. So for example, if I have to show it to you in a clear way, right, you can just fast forward this video if you want. So I can just show it to you in a clear way. Right. Now here if you see here perfectly, that let us say this is the patient's foramen magnum. This is his skull cavity, for example, just a rough picture, guys. Let us say this is his skull cavity, and all of you know that here he has got this cerebral cortex. This is his cerebral cortex, and here he has got his midbrain like this, and after this midbrain, right, not to compromise in the picture. So this is your midbrain. Just beneath the midbrain, this part is called as is the pons of the patient, and then the next important part which I am drawing right now is your medulla oblongata, and medulla oblongata is continuing down. See, till here it is medulla oblongata, and then it is continuing down as your spinal cord. Now, exactly here, you have got which vertebra? You have got C2 vertebra, for example. Just think that there is a C2 vertebra. And let us say I am also drawing one triangular area. Just have a look at it. See, there is a triangular area like this. Okay. So this triangular area, where is this triangular area? Where did I draw? Did I draw in the anterior part of the midbrain, or I have drawn in the posterior part of the midbrain? I have not midbrain, sorry, it is medulla oblongata. Did I draw in the anterior part? See, this is the anterior part of the midbrain, medulla oblongata, and this is the posterior part of the medulla oblongata. So obviously we are discussing right now at the posterior side. So this triangular area, which is called as area postrema, is also present on the posterior side. For example, if you are tying a knot, okay, so in the hangman's fracture, let us say there is a knot that is tied all the way like this. Let us say there is a tie that is there is a knot, right? So all the way like this. So let us say because of this upward pressure, what will happen? There is a fracture of your C2. Yes or no? You know this thing. So C2 vertebra will be fractured. When C2 vertebra will fracture, what will happen is that these fracture fragments, they compress this area postrema anteriorly. So this area is called as your area postrema. So obviously when C2 fracture, which is also called as a hangman's fracture, this is a symbol for fracture, okay. So because of this C2 fracture, what will happen? This fractured bones, fractured vertebra will compress your area postrema, and as a result, what is going to happen? Obviously your cardiac center, vasomotor center and the respiratory center will be damaged, will be compromised, okay. So these are some of the important things which you need to know. So now we shall be discussing what are the additional structures that are located on the posterior side of your medulla oblongata, okay. So we have already discussed some important structures. So again I will draw those structures, but I will not label them, and whatever new structures I am going to draw, I will label them, okay. But we shall have a revision of all these structures which are located, the external features of the posterior side of your medulla oblongata, okay. So once again, for those of you who are attending this lecture for the first time, I am telling you to watch the previous lectures on medulla oblongata. Only then you will understand these lectures, whatever I am talking, okay. So if you can see here, this is your medulla oblongata. Now this medulla oblongata, this is called as the anterior surface or the ventral surface, okay, and this is called as a posterior surface or the dorsal surface of your medulla oblongata, okay, posterior dorsal surface. Now posterior dorsal surface, if you look here, you can divide into two parts, the upper part, the lower part. Upper part is open, lower part is closed, and this canal which you can see here, this canal is called as a central canal, okay. Within this central canal, what do you have? CSF you will have. This central canal will continue as a central canal of what? Spinal cord, okay. So these are the things which you need to know. So let us draw the same picture from the back. Let us start from the midbrain part, okay. So if you discuss about the midbrain, so what did I tell you previously? For example, let us say that this part over, see previously we have discussed this, right? So this part over here, this part over here is called as your midbrain, okay. Now in this midbrain part, there are two structures on the top. So these two structures on the top are called as superior colliculus, and there are two structures on the bottom also. The two structures on the bottom are called as inferior colliculus, okay. So superior colliculus and inferior colliculus are separated with the help of cruciform sulcus, okay. So this is called as cruciform sulcus because it is crossed, right. So this is your midbrain. Now beneath your midbrain, you have got another important structure. What is this? This important structure which I am drawing it because I have to draw some important structures over here. This is called as your pons. This is called as your pons, right. Now just beneath the pons, here, let us say you have got a triangular area like this, right. So I hope all of you know whether this picture is right. Yeah. So this is a triangular area like this. So this triangular area which you can see here, right? This is this triangular area which I drew before, right? So for those who have attended the lectures on the remaining parts of medulla oblongata, you might have understood by now. You see this, that there is a triangular shaped depression. So this is a triangular shaped depression which I have drawn over here. Right, now after that over here, this is one important structure and this is another important structure like this. So these two are two important structures over here, right? So is the picture straight or is the picture cross? Okay, whatever it is, I'll try to make it easy, right? So next important thing is that here let me draw one more line like this, right? And this completes your medulla oblongata. So continuation down, you have got your spinal cord like this. So this part is your spinal cord like this. Okay, so this part over here will be your spinal cord. Now in this particular picture, what are the important things you can see? The first important thing which you can see is that, see, for example, if I am drawing, let us say if I am drawing this structure, if I am highlighting this structure, what is this structure called as? This structure which I am highlighting on both the sides, this is called as olives. So these are called as what? These are called as olives. And by the way, not to forget that this weave, whatever I am drawing here, this is a posterior weave, posterior, or you can also call it as a dorsal weave of your medulla oblongata, posterior or the dorsal weave of your medulla oblongata. Now, next important structure over here is that, let us first discuss the structures which we have already discussed. Okay, so that let us we'll finish up the major part of the diagram over here, right? So if you look here, if you remember that we discussed that this center line, whatever is there, this center line is called as so this center line, whatever is there, this center line is called as a posterior median sulcus. See this line, this center line, whatever is there, this is called posterior median sulcus. On either sides of the posterior median sulcus, you have got two important tubercles like this. You see, you have got two important tubercles on both the sides of the posterior median sulcus. These two important tubercles are called as Gracile tubercles. I have discussed about this previously, right? So these two tubercles are called, I will label these names at the end, but for now what you need to know, these two are called Gracile tubercles. Now after this Gracile tubercles, more laterally over here, you have got two more tubercles. Where are these? These are located, what is this line over here? This line is called as posterolateral sulcus, right? So near this posterolateral sulcus, you have got two more tubercles like this. So these tubercles are called as cuneiform tubercles. So two tubercles in the center, the red ones, these are called as Gracile tubercles. Two tubercles on the periphery, right, laterally located, these two are called as cuneate tubercles. Now just beneath these tubercles over here, if you carefully observe, just beneath these tubercles over here, if you carefully observe, you see on both this, here we have got an elongated ridge or an elongated swollen ridge like this, right? You see this? So this elongated swollen ridge like structure which I am drawing right now, this elongated swollen ridge like structure is nothing but called as your fasciculus. So what kind of fasciculus you call this? This fasciculus is called as, by the way, what is the name of the tubercle? Based upon the name of the tubercle only the fasciculus is based. This tubercle is called Gracile tubercle. So this elongated ridge is called as fasciculus gracilis. So this elongated ridge is called as fasciculus gracilis. So this elongated ridge is called as fasciculus gracilis. Next, just beneath these cuneate tubercle also, you have got this elongated ridge, if you can see here. See this elongated ridge which you can see just beneath this cuneate tubercle, this elongated ridge is called as what? fasciculus cuneatus. So one is called as fasciculus gracilis, this is called as fasciculus cuneatus. So this structure over here is called as fasciculus cuneatus. Okay. So two important structures over here, one is called as fasciculus gracilis, another one is called as fasciculus cuneatus. Okay. I'll label these names later on. Next important thing is that, for example, if I am drawing a line exactly in the center like this, so this line which I am drawing exactly in the center, this is called as median sulcus. This thing also I have discussed it previously. Now let us leave this part, let us continue. Okay, let us even remove this median sulcus, let us start from the pons. In the pons, let us say I am drawing a line exactly in the center, a thin line which I am drawing exactly in the center. So this line over here is called as your median sulcus. Okay. Now let me just name this part. So this line over here is called as your median sulcus. This part is called as median sulcus. Okay. Now on either sides of the median sulcus, there are two more important lines which you can see. See, this is one line like this, this is another line like this. So there are two more important lines that are located on either side of the median sulcus. This is called as sulcus limitans. So these two lines which are located on either side of the median sulcus is called as sulcus. This is called as sulcus limitans. Okay. Next important thing is that on the tips of this, on the tip of the sulcus limitans, exactly near the midbrain, junction of midbrain and the pons, you see there are two important tubercles here, right? So these two important tubercles are called as locus coruleus. Okay. What are these two important structures called? These two important structures are called as locus coruleus. So these two important structures are called as locus coruleus. Okay. Now next important thing is that from the top till the bottom, part here, you have got this particular shading, you see, this particular swelling. So this swelling is in the form of a longitudinal ridge, isn't it? So this swelling is in the form of a longitudinal ridge. So you can see these longitudinal ridge-like swellings. These longitudinal ridge-like swellings, on one on the right and the other one on the left. So these longitudinal ridge-like swellings are called as medial eminence. Okay. On side of the medial sulcus, you have got what? You have got medial eminence. So this particular part is called as your medial eminence. So there are two important structures. One you call it as a median sulcus and the other one you call it as a medial eminence. So you see this? This part over here is called as your medial eminence. Right. So this part over here is called as your medial eminence. Medial eminence. Okay. Now this is regarding the pons, and next if you look here in the lower part of the medial eminence, you see these two red color bodies like this, right? So these two red color bodies which are located below, these are called as facial colliculus. So these two red color structures are called as facial colliculus. These two structures are called as facial colliculus. On either side of the facial colliculus, there is a V-shaped structure. On either side of the facial colliculus like this, there is a V-shaped structure, you see. There is a V-shaped structure on either side of the facial colliculus, or I can also tell like this, on either side of the sulcus limitans, there is a V-shaped structure. This V-shaped structure is called as fovea. This is called as fovea. And as this fovea is present on the top, you can also call it as superior fovea. So if there is superior fovea, there should be inferior fovea also. If this is superior fovea, then where will the inferior fovea present? The inferior fovea will be present down in the medulla oblongata. Okay, so these are your superior fovea. Next, just below your facial colliculus, if you very clearly observe, there is a band of gray matter. Okay, so there is a band of gray matter like this exactly below here. Okay, so this band of gray matter is what is called as your stria medullaris. So this structure is called as stria medullaris. Okay, so a band of gray matter that is located, a bundle of gray matter that is located on either sides of the medial eminence just beneath the facial colliculus is called as stria medullaris. Okay, now we are done with the pons. Now what we'll do is that we shall continue these structures down. Okay, so from the pons, whatever structures we have discussed, how many of these structures are continuing down, we will discuss now. Now if you look here carefully, right, this center line here we called it as median sulcus. Now let us see here, this median sulcus is also continuing as median sulcus within the medulla oblongata. In the pons it is called median sulcus. Down here this one is also called as median sulcus. Okay, so can I tell median sulcus from the pons is continuing as median sulcus in the medulla oblongata, but which side, anterior side or the posterior side? This is the posterior or the dorsal view, right? So it is on the posterior side. In the same way, you see there are two more sulcus on either side of the median sulcus. What are they? They are called as sulcus limitans, right? So let us see now here. You see sulcus limitans is also continuing as sulcus limitans in the medulla oblongata. Okay, the same thing is happening here also. After that, the next important thing is that you told me about medial eminence. So what about the medial eminence over here? So if you can very clearly observe, you can even appreciate the medial eminence over here. You see the medial eminence? So this is the medial eminence that is continuing down into the medulla oblongata, and here also you can very clearly look at the medial eminence that is continuing down. So this is the medial eminence over here. So medial eminence has not changed. Third important thing. See, medial sulcus is not changed, sulcus limitans is not changed, medial eminence is also not changed. Now the next important thing is that here we have discussed something called as, you remember, we discussed something called as superior fovea. So when I tell superior fovea, there should be inferior fovea also. Just have a look here now. You see on either side of the sulcus limitans, you see this V-shaped depression over here on either side of the sulcus limitans over here. So this V-shaped depression which I am drawing right now is nothing but called as your fovea. Now tell me, which fovea is this, superior fovea or inferior fovea? This fovea is called as inferior fovea. This fovea is called as inferior fovea. So this structure over here is called as your inferior fovea. Next, supromedially to inferior fovea. What do you mean by supromedially? What do you mean by supromedially in the sense? Exactly, I'll put a mark, just observe here. See, this particular structure, let me use another color. Yeah, you see exactly this particular structure which I'm drawing here on both the sides. Now, where is this structure, whatever this ash color structure which I am drawing right now, this ash color structure is located above the inferior fovea or below the inferior fovea? It is located above. So, supro. And this is towards the median sulcus or away from the median sulcus? Obviously, it is towards the median sulcus. So, supromedially. So, supromedially here I have got a important structure. This structure which is located here is called as trigonum vagi or vagal triangle. Why are you calling it as trigonum vagi? Because exactly if you look here, this is the place where there is a small nucleus in the center. This is the nucleus for your vagus nerve. So where is the nucleus for vagus nerve located? The nucleus for vagus nerve is located supromedially. Supromedially to what? Supromedially to your inferior fovea. Okay, so this structure I am naming it right now. You see this particular structure over here is called as trigonum vagi. So where is trigonum vagi located? It is located supromedially. It is located supromedially. Supromedially in the sense supromedially to what? The inferior fovea. Okay, within this what do we have? Vagus nerve nucleus. Done. So this is done. Now the next important thing. Now what is this next important thing is that if you look at this inferior fovea, just beneath the inferior fovea, okay, now I am talking about beneath the inferior fovea. See, I am just highlighting it. So just beneath the inferior fovea here as well as here. So can I call this as infrolaterally? Previous one I called as superior medially because that is towards the medial end. Now this red one is towards the lateral end. So can I call it as infrolaterally? Yes. So infrolaterally also you have got this particular structure which I am highlighting here, which is located inferiolateral. Inferiolateral. This structure is called as hypoglossal triangle. Hypoglossal triangle. Why are you calling it as hypoglossal triangle? Because the nucleus for hypoglossal nerve is present here. Next important thing is above to inferior fovea, in the sense, see exactly here on either side. So now you tell me, what should I call this? This is superior or inferior? Superior, and it is medial or lateral away. It is lateral. So can I call it as suprolaterally? Suprolaterally, I have got one blue color structure. Just above that, suprolaterally, I have got another color like this. Okay, so what are these two structures that are located supralaterally? So one structure which you can see here is called as your cochlear area, which is called as your cochlear area. See, this one is called as cochlear area, and this particular blue one over here is called as your vestibular area. So two areas over here, one is called as the cochlear area and the next one is called as the vestibular area. Okay, so cochlear area, another one is called as the vestibular area. So there are two areas over here. Clear, all of you? Right? So these are some of the important things. Now there are some important things that we missed over here. What are those important things? If you can very clearly concentrate over here, in the previous picture I have talked that there is some ridge of neural tissue called as tinea, right? So where is the picture here? See, so you see this red color line which I am drawing right now. So this is a ridge of neural tissue like this. So this ridge of neural tissue, right, is what is called as your tinea. This ridge of neural tissue is what is called as your tinea. So this is called as your tinea. Okay, now just beneath your tinea, if I'm rubbing away all this part, okay, this triangular area, okay, this triangular area where I am putting dots like this, you see, this area is called as obex. What is this area called as? This area is called as obex. This area is called as obex. Third important thing is that within this triangular area called as tinea, from one end to another end, if there is a connection like this, connection. So this connection, I have already told you that this connection is called as what? This is called as fasciculus separatus. So previously I have discussed, I think, you see, this connection, whatever is, this is called as funiculus separatus, right? So this connection which you can see over here is called as your funiculus separatus. Funiculus separatus. Okay, now next important thing, what did I discuss in the previous class? I have discussed that within this funiculus separatus here, you see a triangular area which I'll highlight with another color over here. You see this blue color triangular area. This blue color triangular area is nothing but called as which area? This is called as area postrema. So I have mentioned this already. This area is called as area postrema. Why this area is important? Because this area is having three important centers. One is called as a vasomotor area, another one is called as a cardiac center, and the third one is called as a respiratory center. So that is the reason why area postrema is very, very important. Clear? Right. And by the way, what are these tubercles over here? What is this called as? Cuneatus tubercle or gracilis tubercle. This is called as cuneatus tubercle or cuneate tubercle. If this is cuneate tubercle, what is this red one called as? This is called as gracile tubercle. This is called as your gracile tubercle. One is called as your cuneate tubercle and the other one is called as your gracile tubercle. Next, down here if you see, down here, you see this sulcus over here. This sulcus is called as posterolateral sulcus. See this one. This sulcus which I am highlighting with the red. Posterolateral sulcus. On the surface of posterolateral sulcus here, you have got two red color structures. So what are these two red color structures over here? Yes, these two red color structures are called as tuberculum cinereum. So I have mentioned this previously itself. These two red color structures are called as tuberculum. These two red color structures over here are called as tuberculum cinereum. So, and by the way, not to forget that these are your olives. So one is called as a right olive and the other one is called as your left olive. So apart from this, are there any structures did we miss? So let us just look at the pictures over here. I hope we have discussed all the important structures over here. So here, by the way, what are these two structures over here, guys? So what is this structure and this one? This is called as your superior colliculus and after that this is called as your inferior colliculus. So let us write it down. So this structure is called as your superior colliculus and this structure over here is called as your inferior colliculus. So superior colliculus and inferior colliculus. Superior colliculus is responsible for what? It is responsible for your vision. Whereas your inferior colliculus is responsible for what? It is responsible for your hearing. That is your auditory. Hearing. These two are very important. Okay. So down here we have got something called as median sulcus. Let us discuss right now. So down here we have got, see, this line called as median sulcus, right? On either sides of the median sulcus, you see these two lines over here. These two lines are called as medial sulcus limitans. Okay. Next, in the lower part, if you see, these two nuclei over here are called as facial colliculus. And this swollen area or a longitudinal ridge like this, you call it as medial eminence. Okay, down here you have got something called as stria medullaris. Now after that, the same structures are continuing down into the medulla oblongata. Now into the medulla oblongata, if you see, this area, this one is called as your fovea. So this one is called as your superior fovea and this one is called as your inferior fovea. So inferior fovea has got some parts above and below. Above in the sense supromedially. Supromedially what do we have? Trigonum vagi. Next, infrolaterally what do we have? Infrolaterally we have got hypoglossal triangle. So this is very important, guys. Hypoglossal triangle and this one is trigonum vagi. And after that we have got two more areas. One is called as a cochlear area, another one is called as a vestibular area. Okay, and not to forget that this is your superior fovea and this is your inferior fovea. Okay, next important thing is tubercles. We have got a cuneate tubercle like this. To the cuneate tubercle, what do we have? We have got this fasciculus called as fasciculus cuneatus, right? So let me write it down. So this fasciculus is called as fasciculus cuneatus and this red color fascicle is called as fasciculus gracilis. Fasciculus gracilis. Okay, so we have discussed about fasciculus cuneatus and fasciculus gracilis over here. And down here you have got this structure called as tuber cinereum. On both the sides you have got tuber cinereum. And by the way, not to forget this very important area, that is your area postrema. I told you that area postrema is having three centers. One is called as cardiac center, respiratory center and vasomotor area, right? So these by now we have completed the entire discussion of the medulla oblongata. In the previous lectures also we discussed almost the same things, but we have added a few extra things over here. Okay, and remaining everything is same over here, right? So by this we complete the discussion of the external features of the medulla oblongata. So thank you so much for watching my video. Goodbye.